As Beyblade X has concluded for Season 2, I will be ranking every single one of the parts released for Beyblade X, going over some of the worst and some of the best. Shoutouts to FABEL and Neo for any helps in kind of crafting this, and for overall just kind of going over everything. Also, the thumbnail artists, link in the description below. Check it out and support them. My tiering criteria is based on factors like how strong I think the part is, its general consistency, and this data is based off of the testings that I have done or the tournaments I've competed in through the Ontario Beyblade meta. So just remember that my opinion is subjective. I do not have any authority over anyone else's opinion. We are all equal here, and feel free to share your thoughts in the comment section below and be respectful. So if you like bays that spin, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment your thoughts. And make sure to check out Mall of Bays. We've updated how we take pre-orders if you are in the US. We are Canadian-based and our Beyblades are from Japan. It is an optional way to support the channel, and I appreciate any and all support regardless. So we are at the basic line stuff. So I'm gonna kind of just go over this pretty briefly for most of the things for how I ranked everything. And we'll kind of go from there. So for example, in Tier 5 for F, there's Gill Shark, there's Storm Pegasus, and Dragoon Storm. Storm Pegasus, imbalance in the design. Super hard to use because it's just inconsistent for its performance for anything that you try to do in it. Plus, it's super light. Dragoon is also super light. I don't know, Pegasus maybe like a 560 low rush, and maybe like Dragoon you could do something on maybe Hexa. Dragoon just doesn't hit hard or equalize that good. Gill Shark is super light. Even though this is based off a Shelter Drake, it's just very easy for it to lose stamina and die. Tusk Mammoth has a super round shape, but the thing for Tusk Mammoth is that it has an imbalance, so maybe you could do 60i Hexa and hope you do okay. It's really rough for it. Drigger and Dronzer are maybe like a 160 on like a point kick or taper maybe, and they're fine against these other attackers, I guess. And then after you have, congratulations, triplets with Rhino Horn, Bear Scratch, Knife Shinobi. They're pretty much using almost the same combination. You get like a 160 low flat maybe. They're like just for like that super crazy hit. Bear definitely does hit the hardest out of the three, but is the lightest. Knife Shinobi has a slope which can kind of lead you to maybe do easier extremes or KOs. Leona Claw and Steel Samurai are both maybe just against other attackers, and they're just mediocre. None of them have any real crazy aspect to be used for anything else. Wyvern Gale and Yell Kong advertise for stamina. You only really use it for attack combinations. Low height attack, maybe like Tackle Goats is just a shittier version of Black Shell. I guess you maybe use it for like attack on like a kick. So then after for Tier 3, this is where this gets really interesting. Because for Tier 3, both of the Eldragos, Barrage is good at equalizing, Upper is good for more attack power, but like all Metal Fight remakes, they have some type of thing that hurts them. All of them have a raised design to them with an extra plastic part on it. Eldrago is an imbalance, so it just becomes inconsistent. Would probably get used on similar combinations. Like Eldrago, you just probably run this on like 760 and just hope for like a level bit or maybe a low flat. Rock Leone and Drasil. Leone or Drasil, you could maybe do Hexa or even like the kick bit, and against other attackers, they do pretty good defensively, but obviously not so good because they're ranked pretty low. Hell Scythe and Hell's Chain, I wish I was trolling here, but Hell Scythe is maybe you still use it for defense, otherwise I don't really know. Hell's Chain, and actually extending that to Drawn Dagger and Knight Lance, you'd maybe use these things against other attackers, but we just have far more consistent options. Wizard Arrow, you'd probably run this on like stamina or defense, low height, but it's just too light to work. Viper Tail hits hard, but we have other options that can do that job. In fact, actually, pretty much Tail, Shell, and Cowl are almost the exact same thing, where they're advertised for a specific type but not used for it. The only difference between Cowl is that you do maybe 70 height, because I think that's maybe its kind of best type of use for it. Feather is lighter than Drawn Sword and also just gasses out way easier. It loses stamina pretty quickly. Shelter Drake hits pretty hard, but it's way too light. Spice Tiger is just average at everything. Terra Swing is a good destabilizer blade and pretty good at destabilizing stuff, but other stuff is heavier than it, and I don't really think it's TT special. Now we're gonna kind of talk a little bit more here. So Xeno Excalibur, I think even though it's light on 760 stuff like Rush or even Low Rush, and even though that is a very common build to say on stuff, I think it's pretty hard to justify this being in this. Victory Valkyrie, you would probably get this on a 760. Valkyrie has pretty good smash attack, and I would say kind of upper, because it kind of has a little bit of a slope there that Bays can kind of go on. Victory has a weird gap to it, so it's really just its low rush or low flats. Drawn Sword is still pretty good to this day. It hits pretty hard, I would say. It does fine, because this is in tier 2 right now. Flats, point, kick, rush, low height stuff. Pretty much the exact same thing for Cobalt Drake on here. Cobalt Drake, if you have the original one that's heavy, it's kind of just maybe used against other attackers. Otherwise, maybe defense. It has a really poor shape and design where it just doesn't excel properly anywhere. What saves Night Shield from being in here and not here is that Night Shield has a new mold update where it's, I think, around golem weight, and it has pretty decent stamina. So like a 160 Hexa is pretty good. For Shark and Bite Croc, these are actually very similar to each other. You would probably run these on like a 160 or 760 low flat or kick. They're pretty good smash attack. In fact, I would extend this to Garuda as well, because they're very similar almost for their design, kind of. Unicorn is a pretty good destabilizer, I would say. It's a pretty good balance blade. Taper point kick. Orb, maybe low orb, not too bad. Tricerapress, you'd maybe get this on a low rush or level. It just gasses out way too easily. You could use this also on 960 wedge, I guess. It's really hard to use. It just wastes so much stamina in the end game. Whale Wave hits super hard, but the issue with Whale Wave is that other things either hit harder than it or just more consistent than it. So having a glass cannon now, it's like you don't really need to use it. Tyranoroar, I'm being a little bit harsh here. I think it has pretty good defensive properties and it's fine in attack versus an attack matchup. It's just, I think we just have better stuff than it. Like Samurai Caliber. Caliber is really funny because I think it just does super well on kick. In fact, most balanced stuff probably will. Very good stamina, probably the best out of any attacker in Beyblade X, but here's the catch. It gets KO'd pretty easily, so I prefer Samurai Caliber on 70 height. Otherwise, you maybe do like 960, so I prefer maybe like, actually specifically 770 on Caliber. Honestly, the same thing for Tyrannobeat, maybe 770 kick. That's what saves Tyrannobeat from maybe going in here. Pretty good at meeting other attackers' momentum and destabilizing them. It does a pretty good job still to this day. I like this on kick or rush. On 70 height, I think it looks pretty nice. Phoenix Wing, you could do it on 70 height if you want to. I prefer this on low height, rush, low rush. Point is still fine. Cobalt Dragoon is where this gets interesting because you could argue it could either go really at the top if you only count Elevate, or it could go even here because it's not crazy hard hit. I think it hits pretty fine. Cobalt Dragoon is really best on Elevate because it equalizes against attackers, it destabilizes these ball builds, and you can go toe-to-toe with Hexa. Cobalt Dragoon itself is not actually that good of a blade. It's just carried by Elevate, but on 560 low rush, I still think this is pretty okay. Now we are at the unique line. All right, let's just get the bottom ones out of the way. Ghost Circle and Shinobi Shadow. These two are the exact same issue. They have a very good shape in its design, very nice and round, but super light. You maybe use this on some tall height Hexa or any variant of Hexa and hope you can actually use it and somehow win. Okay, next up for tier 3, we have Phoenix Rudder. Phoenix Rudder just does not really have that much of an impressive shape to it, to where it's not really good for stamina, it's too aggressive for that, and not really aggressive enough for attack. Tier 2, we have Samurai Saber. Samurai Saber, I feel, is super nice in this kind of, honestly, balanced type combinations. It's not perfect for attack, say on maybe like a 160, like a free ball or even on Hexa. It's got pretty nice properties where it can destabilize an opponent. In fact, even something maybe like Trans Point could work pretty well for Samurai Saber because that is a mix of aggression and nice stamina. It's pretty much in the middle for everything, where I think it's really nice. It just doesn't, I think, excel that well. Mostly just because those little wings in the design kind of just hurt it quite a bit. Also on that topic, Leon Crest. Originally, you know, when we didn't have too many options, this wasn't too bad. It's literally just like a thick wall. I really just like this on like 760 on maybe like, maybe dot, maybe wedge, maybe orb or low orb. I almost forgot to do this, so I am kind of trolling, I guess. Hell's Hammer is on tier 3. Hammer's design is like, you'd think it's good because you'd think of the Metal Fight Beyblade screw, but they just messed up the design and it's not heavy at all and it's weak. Speaking of which, Impact Drake actually asked, this is going to be the controversial opinion. No, I originally would have maybe Drake even here, or maybe you could even put it like somewhat higher here. The issue with Drake is that the rubber fucks it up so much, because the moment that the rubber hits, you fucked up. Guess what? You lose the round. If you can make this run on super, super low height, which I think is its most consistent type use, then maybe Impact Drake is not that bad. It's just the rubber hurts it so much, because rubber is going to shock absorb. Aero Pegasus and Phoenix Wing are kind of very similar to each other. The thing is with Aero Pegasus is, to be honest with you, it just has better stamina than Phoenix Wing, but Phoenix Wing hits a lot better than Aero Pegasus. I would say Aero on any low height attack stuff is pretty effective. Rush, I would say Kick works nice. Level, especially on Aero for attack versus attack, works out pretty good. Drawn Buster, despite Whale Wave being a glass cannon as well, impacts Drake. Drawn Buster, I still feel, got a little bit of the gambling wild card factor to it, where you either really hate Buster or you're gonna be like me and a little bit biased here and like it. Now, I would maybe say 160, I like it a lot, but you could use this on a 960, 560, or even 760 and still do pretty well. That Focus 1 contact point, I just think has enough for it to kind of bullshit its way to tier 1. Silver Wolf is a berry that I think originally has fallen off. Now, if you've known this from the original month from November, this would have been an S, but then after it moved down. The reason why is that Silver Wolf gets hard countered by Cobalt Dragoon on Elevate, because first of all, okay, you would use maybe Silver Wolf on like 60 height Hexa maybe, and generally, you know, you can maybe even do taller if you want to or whatever, is that Wizard Rod on Hexa is far more consistent than Silver Wolf, so the next thought, okay, how can we counter that combination? Silver Wolf on 960 low orb, where it has good defense and stabilization property. This is where you could beat Rod Hex and it's still perfectly fine and solid for defense, but it gets hard countered by Dragoon. I still love Silver Wolf. I do think it breaks quite a bit, but it is pretty cool. Scorpio Spear is another one where you could argue for it to maybe even be in B. But Scorpio Spear being super heavy on like a 770 or on Kick, I think it shines so well. It just weight bullies super hard. And plus you could even use this on like a 960 free ball, and for this to actually be a decent stamina option if you wanted to use it. I don't really think the meta demands for it right now, but I'm not really arguing against it. Golem Rock, I would say, is a pretty good blade. It's good against the other attackers, really good at destabilizing them. It's also not bad for the hits that it can do. It kind of struggles a little bit against like the Wizard Rod stuff. I think it has a place where it can still be used defensively if you want to. On Hexa, I guess it's okay. If you use this on like low height, like 760 low rush or whatever, it's kind of, I know I'm trolling because that's like a common combination you could use on anything that can do well, but I really do think in this case it does work effectively. Night Mail, I think, is something where you could use it funny enough on maybe something like a Wedge Bit or something, maybe Dot, maybe even Hexa. I think it shines the best for attack. It just like bumps into opponents really strong and good. And then after we have our big three for the unique line, where this one's the super obvious one. It's Wizard Rod. You could run this on rush, low rush, or whatever level. Wizard Rod can outspin the attackers like that. It is the best option for stamina if you'd want to use it. Wizard Rod right now, I think at its peak is going to be 160 Hexa. It still does well against something like Cobalt Dragoon Elevate. It's kind of almost like 50-50 in air quotes. Now, Hover Wyvern, I would have to say it has to be here for the sheer fact that it does Drawn Buster, but if Drawn Buster was way better. Two massive contact points that hit super good. It can sometimes lift opponents in the air. It's really good at bursting like those 70 height builds and getting nice KOs, overs, and extremes. I particularly like this, honestly, like 160, 960, 360 could also do is fine, I guess, but 160, 960, 760 is okay. Low rush, rush, or kick. I've also seen tall hover be used, like on 70 height, I think 970, so that works out pretty nice. And Shark Scale, I think, is the craziest MVP on here. Now, you could use Scale even on like a low orb or free ball, and to be honest with you, I think that's actually kind of a funny one to do, because it actually doesn't burst at all and can do pretty funny stuff to beat Rod. And even do fine against other attackers. Shark just hits super hard. It just destabilizes opponents so good. It messes up something like Aero Pegasus, which you would think Aero should have more stamina than Shark. And I would honestly say it might be the best blade right now for attack for Beyblade X, because I don't know what else you would use. For overall across matchup spread, I think it's probably the most consistent. You could do it on low height level, you could do it on rush or low rush, you could do it on kick. The craziest thing is that I actually think that Shark Scale is good almost on any height for attack. You could use it on 50 height if you want to, 60. Very common, I've seen Shark on 70 height. Even now on the Ontario Beyblading community, 80 height. It's just that good. So we're gonna be talking about the CX Assist Blade. This is what goes on your main blade when you're gonna be battling. Most of these are gonna be either they don't align too well, bad design, or whatever. Speaking of which, we have Charge, which is right at the bottom here. So the reason why Charge is here, and let's say not where Massive and Bumper is. Charge is tall, but also has a very awkward design where it has no real synergy aligning with any actual main blade, other than maybe the Dark main blade, I guess. It's a really ineffective design where I just think it's really pointless to try to use this thing. You have way better options that are going to be more consistent. The Round Assist Blade, despite it being a round shape, it's basically just we have wheel at home. The issue with this is that I just feel that you don't really get much to it, like you don't get incredible defense or stamina to really use it. I do think the issue with a lot of main blades right now is maybe in the future, maybe Round could be super good, but other than maybe hiding the ratchets, it doesn't really do much that's exciting to use for the custom line. Now you could even argue to put Massive a lot lower here, but Massive and Bumper are kind of similar niche use. Bumper, they designed this for like shock absorption. Does it actually do it? Meh. I think it's good in an attack versus an attack matchup. This was kind of basically the wheel before wheel, I guess, technically speaking. And Massive, it was basically in the contact points of Whale Wave. Since it's plastic, it's not going to be as crazy. It also really stresses like it stretches like super easily. So Massive is more for pure attack, Bumper is more for against other attackers, but both of these are kind of niche. Assault and Turn. So the Turn Assist Blade, I would say with the two modes, I prefer maybe the downwards one. Doesn't really matter, I would say. What's really nice about Turn is that it covers all of the contact area and it's really heavy. So it's not too bad if you want to use it for attack types or even defense. Assault, what stops it from going to the better assist blades tier is that the Assault Assist Blade just is too high for some reason. They made it like, I think it's like 60 height or something, and like Jagging Slash or 50. While it aligns super well on anything you would put on it, the tall height that kind of hurts it quite a bit, but the shape of it's not too bad. So then after you get to Jagging Slash, and these are kind of just like, I don't know, pick your poison. We have no options really right now. Slash, I think, is too exposed for its contact point, so I'm not that big of a fan of it, but we don't really much options, so I guess whatever. Jaggy is really good because Jaggy exposes the metal quite a bit, so I prefer that over Slash. But otherwise, you could pick either one of these and probably do okay. And the reason why Wheel is at the top here is because, big surprise, it is a giant circle. That's it. For defense, it can take some pretty decent hits. While it did hole out this Assist Blade, it's still probably like your best bet for the custom line right now. I think it could hard carry any main blade if you did this in an event. And in an attack versus an attack matchup, you can just easily, well, not super easily, but you can have a very good time against other attackers to outspin them. Okay, so now we have the CX main blade, so we're gonna kind of go over this. You know, it's actually pretty surprising. Nothing goes below tier 3, so that's at least something nice to talk about. Let's first talk about the Reaper main blade, and keep in mind all these PNGs that I actually have on the screen right now. I should have photoshopped just the main blade by itself, but it's just a visual thing just so you can just see it without it being isolated. Reaper is really unfortunate. I don't really think it replicated the Hell Scythe phenomenon that it originally was, where Scythe was compact but aggressive, great stamina. Reaper at best can maybe be used against other attackers or maybe defense. It's got a really awkward shape where a lot of it's cut off in its design, and I don't particularly think it excels that well. Your best bet would maybe be, I guess, Jaggy or Turn, and pairing this up with like a bit with stamina, so maybe either Kick or Hexa, and hoping you can do well against other attackers. Otherwise, it's not particularly that special. It's pretty weak, I would say. Speaking of weak, unfortunately, Dark is not that good of a main blade. Despite this being the GOAT Gravity Perseus, they made this shit ass. Dark is just based off of Night Lance's shape, but Night Lance had not that bad of a shape. It was aggressive, but the issue here is that they took away what actually made the shape good, and it's 4 rounder off. Now you'd think, okay, but for a defense type, you do want to be more round, don't you? True, but the issue is it's not good enough for defense and it's not really that good enough for attack. I think your best bet for the Dark Main Blade could be the Assault Assist Blade or Turn, maybe 960 Dot or 960 Hexa, or maybe like a Low Rush or something if you really wanted to use it. Or I guess maybe Kick also, you could just throw it in there if you want to. But now this one shouldn't be too surprising, but Flame is not good. You would just use something like Arc because it weighs more, and Flame, well, it's not that much of a difference in weight. I don't know, it's really hollowed out, and I just feel like you just pair, what do you pair it up with? Like Turn, I guess, for defense if it's not with Wheel? You're not gonna do Jaggy because that stamina is not gonna really do that much. It just doesn't really have that interesting of a shape. And maybe I could change my mind in the future, but now we're gonna be getting a little bit interesting here because it's gonna be a little bit controversial. Okay, so first of all, pretty obvious here, the Brave Main Blade. This is based off of Drawn Sword. I do think this is just basically like a Diet Drawn Sword, like they're kind of similar to each other. I would probably maybe run Drawn Sword before I would run Drawn Brave. Drawn Brave at best, I think, for peak Assist Blade, just get that shit on Jaggy. Brave hits pretty decently, I would say. I think if this is on a 560 flat or kick or something like that. Now, worse than Brave is Fox Brush, more specifically the Brush Main Blade. Brush's whole focus is supposed to be like this barrage attack or whatever. I think at best, it's comparable to Brave, and it's just super, super average. Now, the Arc Main Blade, which is what we're specifically talking about here, where I think this goes well is that this is perfectly fine if you want to get this on defense. In fact, technically speaking, if you want, you could argue for Wheel, maybe it could go slightly higher, but you get this on Turn, which I think would be pretty nice against other attackers. No, yeah, Turn on Arc, I would say. I think this goes perfectly well against other attackers just to outlive them. Or again, your niche similar to Dark would just be defense. The only difference between Arc and Dark, I just think Arc has a slightly better shape in its design because it's basically just Wizard Arrow, but not a perfect shape, obviously. Now, where the controversy actually comes, because this is pretty tame right now, you could make a very, very good argument for both Volt and Blast, actually, wait, hold on, being in just B tier. And the reason why is that when I thought about my tier list for what I had Phoenix Wing, you know, Scorpio Spear, Knight's Mail, Arrow Pegasus, you know, I just thought like, would I ever use like a Blast or a Volt over what I currently have? And I just thought like, I feel both of these are pretty much almost the exact same combo you would run. Now, and that's not to say that Blast is not, like Blast you would say right now, if we were ordering this right now, you'd probably do something like this. Blast hits super, super good. It's just the thing with CX is that the consistency is not to a crazy bar right now. I think it hits pretty good, like on level or on rush, I think you'll do perfectly fine. And honestly, Volt is kind of the same. The only difference between Volt and Blast, other than obviously the weight, is that I think Volt can go a little bit easier into Wizard Rod, and Blast is just all around, I would say maybe like the slightly more consistent one, but you could argue for both of these to maybe be in tier 1. Yeah, I would probably say maybe the hot take here is gonna actually be Flame on Wheel on there. I just feel this is probably the best pairing for defense or even against other attackers. Preferably this one on a super tall Ratchet just so you can focus on that plastic contact and win. And at tier 0, which I think this has to be said because on the Ontario meta, Blast has shifted just specifically on Wheel combinations because Blast on Wheel is just super, super good either defensively or against other attackers because Heavy Blade plus Wheel, you're gonna probably bully them out of the stadium or just outspin them. So I would say for right now, for the custom line, part of their issue is that the height hurts these blades a lot. Like it's either they make these things have good shapes or they try to weight creep the thing and power creep. But overall, I think this is pretty fair to the custom line. Since Ratchets are very complicated, instead of tiering them, I just thought to give a basic quick guide to Ratchets just so you can understand. So explaining sides, like 0 sides right here, you can see it's a very large overhang. If this does make contact with extreme rail, it'll probably burst and die. Otherwise, it has pretty good stamina, like very, very high. The weight on it's also not bad for generally 0 sides. What's good about one side is that it's focused all in one point. It's very good for escaping pockets and giving powerful hits. Whether this is for attack types or defense types, it does a pretty good job all around for a good hit or a counter hit. You could also, if you want, use this maybe for stamina combinations just to give that big swing at the end. 2 sides is kind of redundant just because these large contact points are very easy to burst, so unless it's for attack stuff, it's going to be useless, but even then there are way better options that are more safer. 3 sides is very common and universal. Actually, just to add on to that, pretty much it's almost the same thing for 9 sides. You just do 9 sides if you just want to try to avoid the burst risk, because 9 sides is a lot more smoother for its contacts there. I don't really like 4 sides just because of the burst risk. Obviously, if you're on low height, you might be able to avoid it, but it's not particularly that special or exciting. 5 sides, specifically if it's on 60 height, I suppose is fine. It gives good support to balance or attack builds, and it's okay. 6 sides is like 3 sides, except it bursts slightly more, and also I do think it gives maybe a little bit better support than 3 sides for the builds to be a little bit more stable, kind of like what 560 does. 7 sides is thick and it has a lot of weight, so it's good for attack or defensive use, and it's very, very nice to use for those combinations. Now to quickly talk about height. 50 height or 60 height, it doesn't really matter. These are probably going to get universally used since people just prefer really short combinations. It's fine. Now, generally speaking, when we're talking about 70 height is okay in the context of, I guess, maybe these balance or attack builds. Defense is also fine, I suppose. Not too common, but your goal is to down smash or destabilize the opponent. And then after, for 80 height, it's kind of the same idea. 80 height, you'd maybe just do it for defense at this point. Otherwise, I don't really know what else you would use it for. Single piece ratchets are very, very important to mention, because instead of locking the blade when you twist and hold, they just kind of put there to stay, and any bit that you use is going to be the same resistance, so they're all going to be 30. So it doesn't matter if you have a high resistant bit or a low resistant bit. This is a big risk because that just means bits can get lifted off more easily, and they also just don't have a strong resistor. Metal 85 is pretty much almost the same case as 385. You just basically use it for, I guess, maybe defensive builds, but the 5 sides on Metal 85 is pretty easy to burst, I would say. 455, you would probably just use it on Cobalt Dragoon for that low height equalizer. Otherwise, you'd probably just do 450, since otherwise, like, there's no real use for 455. It just scrapes along, doesn't have great stamina. Okay, so then after we have our bit section, so I'll kind of go over this. So Metal Needle is at the bottom, because I just think it's probably one of technically the worst bits in Beyblade X. It's just super easy just to dent the stadium. You can launch to avoid, but I don't really like it. Turbo, because it's basically a single piece ratchet, it's super easy for it to burst and die. It's also just super tall and not really effective for its movement pattern. Spike and Quake. Spike is not really that good for defense. There's no real stamina. Quake jumps around, so it'll probably just eventually die. Glide, Excel, Zap, Merge. So everything but Merge has 16 gears. Merge has like 18 gears. The super high gear ratio, and this is in general, just fucks with these bits so much because they just end up wasting so much stamina when you do an extreme dash. For Glide's case, I just think even if it has good stamina, you can just get very easily KO and die. Excel, I just think is just the worst version of Flat. Zap is a worse version of Point, but I guess it's slightly better than Excel for stamina. Merge is really bad because Merge just does not have a round shape in its design, and it's super tall. I don't care that it's tall, I just care that the shape is so bad that there's no real stamina for it. Gear Flat goes super crazy around the stadium, but there's too much gambling to try to see whether or not you could do that big hit and win. Disc Ball is 2 millimeters taller than that of a regular bit, so if you're on 60 height, you're technically 80 height. It's super easy for this thing to burst and die. You could technically run this on defensive combinations. Needle, High Needle, Gear Needle. Needle can take a hit, but no stamina. High Needle has stamina, but I don't really think at this point could really take a hit. Gear Needle is more of a destabilizer bit, where it can destabilize builds, but it's not really much KO defense. Rubber Excel, you could argue for this to be at the tippy top, because if you get it worn, it has super good defensive properties to where you can argue that that is pretty good. Oh, sorry, and for Rubber Excel, the reason why it's so low is just because it's just not consistent for actual attack types. You either have it here or you highball it when it's worn for defense. Under Flat is 2 millimeters shorter than that of a regular bit, so if I'm at 60 height, I'm at 40 height. It just has no stamina. Wedge, Under Needle, and Dot, what do these all have in common? Great stamina, no KO defense. Wedge, super good stamina, but one, I think it's pretty easy to burst, but if you have a tight ratchet, you can avoid, but KO defense is not too crazy. Under Needle, amazing stamina, but it's kind of easy to KO. Dot, good stamina, but kind of easy to KO. Bounce Spike, good defense, no stamina. Vortex, it's better than Gear Flat, but still worse than regular Flat. So it has crazy attack power, but not much like crazy stamina like Flat would maybe. Gear Point has better stamina than Gear Flat, and it's kind of still a wild card, but okay, I guess. High Taper is fine. It's tall, but you don't really use it over really anything. Gear Ball, I guess, has enough stamina to maybe where you could argue for maybe slightly more than Gear Needle, but I don't care either way. You could have it on tier 3 or tier 4. Transpoint, I think, big weakness is that it can burst super easily. It'll burst and die if it can do that little stage transition where it goes from either low or high mode. Low is like, for an example, if I'm on 60, I'm on 50 on low mode, or if I'm in high mode, I'm on 70. Gear Rush is just like a lesser version of a Rush, but it's okay. Unite is like Taper, but more aggressive and very hard to control, so you have to be careful, but it's not too bad. Wall Ball could maybe be higher, but no resistor on there, so it's still better than Glide, and I definitely think has better stamina than Hexa, so I don't really know. Maybe on a Rod or Silver Wolf, I've definitely seen this used on Rod and done well, but Wolf, I'm not too sure. And moving on from there, Orb and Low Orb are kind of the same thing. They have pretty good KO defense, I would say, and enough stamina to last fine. Flat and Low Flat are kind of just same ballpark. If you want to use on attack builds, they're perfectly fine. Just do the job pretty alright. Taper is still fine, I guess. It has enough stamina to still be used effectively. It's okay, it's not crazy, but I guess it's better than the bottom ones. Elevate is only really good on Cobalt Dragoons, so you can maybe argue lower, maybe. Otherwise, it's kind of just whatever, because it would just burst and die otherwise. So it's really just either on Cobalt or it's really not. Maybe like a Silver Wolf or maybe a Scorpio Spear. I don't really know. In Cyclones, basically just Rush, but slightly worse. Ball and Free Ball are probably your best stamina bits to use right now. I think Free Ball is pretty good on the stabilizer stuff. Otherwise, they're pretty similar case usage. Kick is probably, I would say, one of the best bits to use in Beyblade X. It stands really tall in the end game, great stamina. Rush and Low Rush are very controlled for their movement, very slow, and probably one of the easiest bits to use on any real attack combination in the current meta. Level has the most stamina out of any attack bit in Beyblade X. The real weakness is potentially self-KOing, but otherwise is really good. And Hexa is your best defense bit, so you have literally no other option, and it has strong resistance. So that's pretty much your bits. Okay, so now we're gonna be wrapping up here. So I think overall, just to give my final thoughts to sum this up, when you look at the Beyblade X meta, I think what's really cool about this is that originally we would complain, oh, Wizard Rod is dominating the meta, the ball is oh, it's so blah, blah, blah. And then the meta has shifted and evolved so much. I think right now some of the best stuff to use is like a Rod Hexa, a Scale, or a Hover, and then you got, and I guess like Blast on Wheel, and then you got like the rest. I think right now we're getting a very dominant meta where it's a lot more focused on heavier attack stuff. I would love to see if we can still see stamina still kind of be used quite a bit. I think stamina now, we can just have so many things that can just take it down pretty easily. What are your current critiques for the Beyblade X meta? What are some things you want to see for the future? Did you agree or disagree with anything? So I do want to say thank you all for watching, and thank you for all the support. I love doing videos like this where it's educational and focused on a nice discussion, so I want to say take care and bye!